Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. We're having a meeting here today, the purpose of which is for all of you to call the show and say wonderful things about me while I take a nap. I learned this leadership skill from yesterday's cabinet meeting and also every other cabinet meeting that's ever taken place. Another fine example of, well, there's so many things wrong with this. Not the least of which I did see pointed out. Someone pointed out somewhere yesterday that it is amazing that for some reason people in the White House operation are making this decision that we will have regular-ish cabinet meetings, and we're going to use them to boost the image of the president as being vigorous and in charge, and then we're going to televise them, which is a terrible idea. I mean, it's a good idea if you think you can get the guy to stay awake, I guess, and be in charge. But he never says anything in these meetings. And, of course, he runs the meetings only as an opportunity for members of the cabinet to shower him with praise. And, I mean, it's embarrassing praise. It would be embarrassing praise anyway. I guess I should add that. Most people I know are, at best, uncomfortable with receiving praise. Donald Trump only wants praise and will fire you if you don't give it to him. It's a very weird, I think, sociopathic sign in general. I mean, you're supposed to get more comfortable with praise and just be okay with it if you're good at what you do, I suppose. But if you are terrible at it and you instead use your position to force everyone else to tell you that you're awesome, well, that's a different story. Anyway, he couldn't stay awake even for massive and overstated and crazy praise for himself. And that's partly because he's 79 and partly because he stayed up past midnight to scream about somebody else he was mad at. And, you can't actually do those things. So he's spent most of the time dozing off. I really don't know why the White House communications team thinks they're going to get good footage out of this thing. They really should have cut off the cameras early or sent them out and said, we have some serious business to do, even though everyone would have known that was an abject lie. Anyway, so the cabinet secretaries sit around. And I guess at some point they feel obligated. It's somewhere it says in the manual or in the job description, you should use some time at the cabinet meetings to tell the president something policy related, something that has to do with your area, that your department, whatever stupid thing you dress up to do each day. Like in Kristi Noem's case in particular, what is it you're doing? What super awesome progress? And you can work that into the praise. We're doing this fantastic thing because of you, because you told us to do it, and it's working great. And that would be the time during which he fell asleep normally, but now he falls asleep during the praise part too. And the praise is really seriously over the top. Who was it? I think it was Kristi Noem reporting at Homeland Security on behalf of FEMA, which sits under the Homeland Security banner, and said something like, FEMA was well prepared for everything. We didn't need to be. We got through, she said, you got us through hurricane season. You turned all the hurricanes around. You made sure that no hurricanes hit the continental United States during the hurricane season. And I guess I guess that's the case, that we didn't have any hurricanes make landfall in the continental United States. It wasn't Trump that was, pushing them away or flexing muscles and scaring them or nuking them or anything like that. Or as Justice points out, he didn't even have to Sharpie them all into the other direction. They just didn't go there. But Kristi Noem saw fit to say at the cabinet meeting that it was the awesome power of Donald Trump that frightened them into not coming to the United States, which, normally you don't want that kind of nonsense said in public by anybody of any kind, much less supposedly in a position of authority at a cabinet meeting. The rest of the praise was just as stupid and foolish, and but my Blue Sky feed is, regardless, full of pictures of him falling asleep. It is interesting to watch Republicans say, well, you take enough pictures of somebody, you're going to catch them with what looks like their eyes closed. But I mean, he's snoring. He's slumping over. He's like making little noises as he breathes out. His He was very clearly asleep. But he was power resting his eyes, something. Anyway, meanwhile, yesterday also had elections going on because it's a Tuesday. Tuesday coming before Wednesday. Wednesday being the day that Greg Dworkin comes back to tell us about what happened in the elections on Tuesday. We can prepare for these things. Lots of fun things happened, and we'll go with as a result with the news really fanfare. Even though we really don't even need to do this anymore. Everybody's kind of used to the idea that Greg Dworkin is just always there, but this is nice. He's arriving triumphant to tell us essentially that everything went more or less as expected. All right. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Good morning. So everything went more or less as expected.
All righty. Very good. Thanks for the update. And now...
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, but this happened.
I really did not expect them to be a part of the election. Were they?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. This was a Trump plus 22 district.
We're talking about
There's
Tennessee.
No possible
7th.
way that in Tennessee, the Democrat should have been competitive.
I mean, except with normal
she
districts.
was. In fact, she only lost by 9. Yeah, I wanted it to be closer, but that's actually just about where you'd expect it to be.
I think it was R plus 22 going in.
R plus 22 and winds up being R plus 9.
So
a major overperformance yet again by a Democrat. This was probably the smallest overperformance in recent Trump era, Trump 2.0 special elections, and nonetheless it was still a plus 13. And the implication is enormous for November 2025. Yeah, you should pay attention to people who are saying she wasn't the greatest candidate for this very rural conservative district. She was basically AOC in Tennessee. And that doesn't necessarily play well. And yet, she was a great campaigner. She did fine. I sent you a map from the New York Times of the shift in margin compared to the 2024 presidential election. And every single county moved to the left, that is to say, went more blue. But especially in Davidson County, which includes Nashville, also includes Fisk. I mean, these are where Kamala Harris was campaigning. And did she do some good? Yeah, she brought out Democrats. Do people not love her in the rural counties? Probably, but she didn't go there. So, why was she campaigning there? Because she wanted to make it as close as possible in a situation where Republicans far outnumber Democrats. You got to get every Democrat out. So she did her job. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. And this is a very, very credible showing and has major implications going forward. So here's just some of the reactions from it. This is from Politico. Despite loss, Democrats overperformed in bright red Tennessee House race. Afton Ben is on pace to significantly outperform Vice President Kamala Harris in the Nashville area district Tuesday night, which is true. I think she improved by 20 points over Harris. Democrats notched an off-cycle achievement. And, Republicans were upset.
Yeah, and it cost them a lot of money and time. And great. And also in the background of all of this is the Nashville area itself is quite blue, and which is why the Republican Party in Tennessee split it up into 3 different districts and diffused all the Democrats out into Republican places. People were mentioning 5 years ago the area had a Democratic representative because it was mostly a Nashville district, and maps are circulating to show you exactly how it was sliced up. This was done by design. There is no candidate as a Democrat that fits the district or any of the neighboring districts anymore because they're designed to be Republican districts. That's what fits the district. But coming out and campaigning strong and unabashedly, and in what an atmosphere to be doing it in a war crimes, Epstein, affordability crisis, any number of opportunities there, and in combination, they skim 15 points off of a ridiculously overloaded Republican district's margin. That's worth noting.
Right. So back to Politico. Ahead of the race One senior House Republican told Politico, if our victory margin is single digits, the conference may come unhinged. As the midterm arguments continue to focus broadly on the national landscape, Democrats see Ben's performance in the Ruby Red District as a sign that they can flip more than enough seats to overtake the House. It's an insane result, is the quote. Oh. And the Republicans in Congress and this White House have shown zero signs of being able to stop the bleeding. It's going to get worse for them before it gets better, said Jason Bressler, strategist who served as the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee's political director in 2018.
Yes.
So he's been to the rodeo. And to that end, they're hoping to unseat Andy Ogles in the neighboring 5th District, which went for Trump 18 points last year, making it more favorable for the party. So, the point is they're not just looking at Trump plus 5 districts, which they'll win. They're not just looking at Trump plus 10 districts, which they'll win. They're now looking, as Amy Walters said last week, if you start seeing plus 10 to plus 15 Trump districts being competitive, watch out. That's going to be more than 20 Democratic seats.
It certainly holds out that promise. And think about that, right? The Republicans are, I think, going to say, well, a win is a win, and they're going to run around saying everything's fine. Although behind the scenes, the smarter of them will be panicking, especially where they've redistricted again and said, I'd rather have 3 seats R plus 5 than 1 R plus 15. The R plus 15 wasn't safe anymore, but now the R plus 5s are doomed.
Well, so let me get to my favorite punching bag, Mike Johnson.
All right.
Speaker Mike Johnson's leadership team was bracing for a tighter-than-comfortable race, and the single-digit margin was a hard pill to swallow after national Republicans raced to rescue Van Epps in the final days. It was too close, said one House GOP leadership aide. Tonight is a sign, my favorite quote, that 2026 is going to be a bitch of an election cycle. Republicans can survive if we play team, and the Trump administration officials play smart. Neither is certain. I would add, neither is possible.
Come on.
Look, they can't play team. Let me give you an example.
Team.
Elise Stefanik. I mean, this is just part of the outcome of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay. My pundit roundup headline today was a weak Mike Johnson attacked by his own leadership team.
Doe. All right.
And this is the story in Politico. Stefanik accuses Johnson of lying, blocking her defense bill provision. The New York Republican wants legislative language cracking down on secret federal investigations into political candidates. And Johnson and Jamie Raskin agreed that, it's stupid. You commit a crime, you're going to get investigated. But Stefanik doesn't want that. She wants immunity. Representative Elise Stefanik is taking aim directly at Speaker Mike Johnson over signals a provision she has championed won't be included in the annual defense policy bill if they ever get around to it. The House wants to pass, marking a notable and unusual split inside the House GOP leadership team. A New York Republican who serves as a member of Johnson's leadership team said in a social media post Tuesday morning she would help tank the National Defense Authorization Act if it doesn't incorporate her provision that would require the FBI to notify Congress when it opens investigations into candidates running for federal office. No. But also here's the actual post from Stefanik, which is just dandy. She says, and I quote, just more lies from the speaker. And in true form, the speaker texted me yesterday claiming he knew nothing about it. Yeah, right. This is his preferred tactic. This is a leadership team. This is his leadership team. Whoops. This is his preferred tactic to tell members when he gets caught torpedoing the Republican agenda. It wasn't on your radar. This is the only provision in the bill to root out the deep state rot. This is not regular order. Regular order is a member's provision that passed out of committee, should be heard on the floor, not struck down by a Democrat minority member in a closed-door meeting. That was Raskin. My provision passed out of the House Intelligence Committee, which is committee of jurisdiction. You torpedoed this, siding with Jamie Raskin. You said you would fix it, so fix it. So things are really going well with Mike Johnson, because that's a perfectly normal kind of social media tweet from his leadership team.
Yeah. In days gone by, when being on things like the Speaker's Committee meant the Speaker ruled with an iron fist, you would find, Elise Stefanik is not in a leadership anymore. Isn't that something? Holy mackerel.
Right. As a matter of fact, she has her office outside on the sidewalk. That's what would have happened under Nancy Pelosi.
Right. Well, interesting. I'm glad they're having this fight, and they're both losing it. That is fantastic. Yeah, you don't have to be a Nancy Pelosi to be like, how about we rescind your invitation to be a part of the team? Bye.
Right. Any other speaker would put her out on the street. Nancy Pelosi would put her out on the street and send her the rent bill.
Maybe. All right.
So the Hill has this. It gets better.
Oh.
This is Mike Johnson, fully under control. Republican dissenters spark discharge petition class with Johnson. Speaker Mike Johnson is staring down a potential political firestorm in the coming weeks as a few Republican dissenters aim to use a rare procedural mechanism to force legislation on a stock trading ban and Russian sanctions onto the House floor. And I think Stefanik said she's going to sign on to the stock trading ban, too. Wow. So she's continuing to thumb her nose at Johnson and shove her finger in his eye, actually.
Is the Russian sanctions pro-Russian sanctions, or are the sanctions pro-Russian?
I'm not sure which. The point is, whatever it is, Johnson's against it, so it's probably anti-Russian.
Whatever it is, yeah, probably true. And by the way, just a little more proof for the lessons we've told in the past, why the leadership works so hard to diffuse discharge petitions when they come close to succeeding is when one succeeds, and for several decades none did. And if they came close to it, they try to find a way around it or diffuse it so that no one would get the idea, hey, this works. Then it worked, and now everybody's got the idea, hey, this works. And now he has to have 10 of them at the same time. So there you go. It was a good idea to try to kill it. From a control perspective, he's just not capable of doing that.
Well, yeah, he's not capable of anything.
Well, that's why you don't want weak speakers.
The Hill says his colleagues' attempts to sidestep him on these issues puts Johnson in a bind as he seeks to unify a divided and disgruntled caucus ahead of critical votes on a national defense policy bill, government funding measures, and other key items tied to President Trump's agenda. But think about what these discharge petitions are about.
I do.
Okay. In other words, we're talking about cracking down on insider trading.
Yes.
Okay. In general, not a bad idea.
Yeah.
This is something like normies could support, which is going to be my point here.
Right. Okay.
The other one is we want more sanctions against Russia. That doesn't sound bad at all either. So the point I'm trying to make is that the invisible moderates in the Republican side, remember, moderate is a relative thing. If you're Attila the Hun, but the most leftist person in the Republican conference, you're a moderate.
I guess so, right?
So the moderates, the Don Bacons, the phony moderates like Michael Lawler, the people who in theory could have stopped a whole bunch of the Trump agenda by standing up for principles, apparently are starting to stir, and those are going to be some of the names on those petitions. And in addition, you have some of the nutty ones like Anna Paulina Luna, who you can't really characterize as being ideological as much as insane.
Okay.
Are some of the members that are pushing these petitions because they want to distance themselves from the Trump agenda at least a little bit and pretend that they're independent at least a little bit, because they have to run again in 2026 in the atmosphere they gave us a Democratic, loss of only 9 points in a Trump 22 district.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, they're really interested in these sorts of things.
Yes. Well, the discharge petition has always been a curious procedure, and it's amazing that they've managed to hold them off so often for so long. I do remember back when I was a young man, and actually on Capitol Hill, it was there at the time that it was Newt Gingrich thought it would be the most awesome idea. He pushed the idea that at the time in the early 90s still, signatures on, and it's hard to believe that this was ever the case just in the United States government, signatures on discharge petitions were secret. Like you weren't allowed to confirm or deny. I guess you could deny it, but you weren't allowed to confirm how many or whose signature were on the things, and it was shielded. And he, as a Republican then in the minority, said this was a tool of dictatorial control by tyrannical Democrats. looking to hide the truth from the American public. And he wanted to campaign on, well, we're trying to do a discharge petition and you should pressure, he was trying to find those sort of middle of the road things that you could pressure Democrats to sign in defiance of the leadership. Anyway, so now that he cracked that code, he's farting around somewhere, watching the Republican Party lose control of itself thanks to the awesome reform that he ushered in. He doesn't care, He's grifting elsewhere now. I just thought that was interesting. Good job, Newt Gingrich.
Yeah, well, Newt Gingrich just did a bang-up job in a lot of different places. But still, again, discharge petitions are most relevant when you have a really small majority.
Yes.
And Mike Johnson is doing an awful job holding them together. It looked like, to the non-paying attention general public, the casually interested in Congress public, that Johnson was holding his conference together, Democrats caucus, Republicans conference.
Right.
He was conferencing his members into, very small 1.1 member wins, which are completely dependent upon somebody not being sick or dying that day, which is a thing that makes the small majority even smaller. And in that situation, discharge petitions carry a tremendous amount of weight because you only need 2, 3, 4 members to sign on from your own party in order to bypass your control of what goes on the floor. Why is it so important that you block these things that people want? That's another story altogether. Mm-hmm. You can't even argue that this is the old Dennis Hastert majority of the majority stuff, because the majority of the members might be into one of these things. But you don't want to even know because you're so afraid of offending Trump, you simply don't want anything he hasn't approved of coming to the floor. And that's his only thinking on this. He's not trying to defend members or protect them from elections or anything like that. Because some of the stuff that's going down here in those discharge petitions may turn out to be reasonably popular with the public.
Right. They could show that in a red massacre year, maybe you shouldn't get rid of me. I have an independence streak.
Right.
Now that the signatures are public.
Now that the signatures are public. Right. But it's just, it's really hard to think about exactly why it is that all of this is happening. Anyway, back to this election and some reaction here. This is Brian Roswell writing on Twitter. It seems like we're headed toward a universe which any Republican in less than an R+15 district is headed for a real race if Democrats have a decent candidate who can raise money. Now, in theory, this is good for democracy because it means that the member has to be a little bit more responsive to their constituency.
That would be nice.
And maybe affordability matters, and maybe that'll affect how they think about tariffs. Mm-hmm. In fact, this election may affect the Supreme Court in terms of how they think about tariffs, but that's another story for another day. Lakshaya Jain, another analyst, says, leave the binary of did you win aside. I also think this is a major flag for Republicans. Turnout hit 2022 midterm levels. In other words, it was a high turnout election.
Yeah, for a special, all alone.
Democrats ran a DSA-esque candidate in a Trump plus 22 seat and still lost by just 9. Mm-hmm. That's really bad for the GOP. I mean, he said, you have someone who's to the left of Zoran Mandami on policing in a Trump plus 22 district. How did people think it was going to go? That she's getting to an R+9 margin despite all of that is something else.
Yes. What it is, we're not sure. I mean, it's probably equal parts. I'm furious with Trump and Republicans and we can't do anything to empower them. And, hey, I've been waiting for somebody to campaign like this in my neighborhood. And for one neighbor, it would be one thing, and for another neighbor, it would be another, and there's no telling.
Big Democratic turnout. And again, you did get a Republican turnout because Trump asked his people to come out.
By video.
But not
very strongly
as much as the Democrats. Democrats had much better performance than the Republicans in every single county, including the rural ones.
That's good. Yeah. Well, I was very pleased to see it. And, the dynamics are multi-layered in every aspect of it, including the discharge petition. In fact, to connect it to another point that you brought up, it used to be the case that the leadership had a credible threat in saying, don't sign this discharge petition, members of the majority, or I will break your legs. And then they see Elise Stefanik doing this to the speaker right to his face, and there's no response. Nobody believes the threats on discharge petitions or any other thing, voting against rules, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, voting against rules has immediately popped in my mind thanks to your instruction. It's do table or don't table this motion based on party line, because if you dare to vote with the other side, that just opens the door for all sorts of nonsense, like actually voting with the majority of who wants something done. We can't have that.
No. One, we can't have that happen. Two, we'll definitely get you, but you definitely won't be gotten. One. And two, it might be better for you if you, in fact, went with the majority of the House and the majority of your constituents. How come I can't control this place?
So we're going to get to the Secretary of War Crimes after the break. And by the way, I got a video for you to play.
Okay.
I put it in there. It's from Blue Sky. And it's a piece from Newsmax. Of all places.
I think I know what it is, because I think I have that already ready.
Cool.
I see
Taniel points out that Democrats have flipped the mayor's office in Roswell, Georgia.
Not Roswell, New Mexico.
Roswell, Georgia. In tonight's runoff.
That too, though. Yeah.
GOP Mayor Kurt Wilson conceded earlier tonight to Mary Robichaud, the Democratic challenger.
Yes.
The reason there was an election is because there was a runoff. The reason there was a runoff is because Wilson, the incumbent mayor, beat the Democrat in a multi-person runoff by I remember the exact numbers, 37.8 to 37.6. Didn't get enough to cancel a runoff. This is the runoff. And the Democrat wins by 6 points.
That's amazing. Sometimes I really love those runoffs. They're very often so disappointing. Wow, we have a chance. Oh, well, when it's one-on-one, no, we don't.
But you know what the big issue was? There was an antebellum, garden, and this mayor, without telling anybody, started cutting trees down for development.
Oh. Well, you can get away with that if you're orange.
This is like Virginia traffic. I mean, local issues matter.
Funny. Okay. Good. Glad you got... Well, bye.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin is with us and has a plan for segment 2, or at least the beginning.
Segment 2, I have a plan, and the plan is to go to our go-to site for all news and commentary, Newsmax.
The maximum amount of news.
Maximum News with Judge Andrew Napolitano, senior judicial analyst and overall iconoclast. So it's only 30 seconds. Why don't we just play it?
All right. Judge Andrew Napolitano. Everybody's a judge over there. One of them.
Well, it's like if you're talking to people in the South, everybody's a colonel.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Well, this was all right. Well, he is occasionally willing to speak up to the Republican establishment, and I guess he does it here, but in what fashion?
Gives me no pleasure to say what I'm about to say because I worked with Pete Hegseth for 7 or 8 years at Fox News. This is an act of a war crime, ordering survivors who the law requires be rescued instead to be murdered. There's absolutely no legal basis for it. Everybody along the line who did it, from the Secretary of Defense to the Admiral to the people who actually pulled the trigger, should be prosecuted for a war crime for killing these two people.
And who would
Okay, well, that's unequivocal.
No beating around the bush. Exactly right.
Or they cut that part out.
You know, a lot of times I just shake my head when people say, yeah, well, okay, we won this election and the Republicans are losing in the polls and we're winning all of these specials and the atmosphere is terrible. Well, who cares? What difference does it make? They're still doing what they're doing every day. Well, that's because you can't stop them until you have an election.
Yes.
Courts won't do it. I mean, they will to a certain extent. It takes time, yada, yada. But they are losing. They're losing in the court of public opinion. And the idea that Pete Hegseth is somehow invulnerable is ridiculous.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you're Steve Bannon. It doesn't matter whether you're Stephen, whatever his name, President Stephen.
Miller. Nosferatu.
Yeah, it's got one of those ethnic names I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Miller.
You come from Milos.
Mueller, right. So, I mean, the point is, Trump is for Trump. And if it feels to him like things are getting out of hand, then he's taking too much criticism, whoever you are is going to be let go. Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, doesn't matter. He has no loyalty to any of these people. That is something that is intrinsic about Trump. So the idea that, well, it doesn't matter because nothing is good, that's not true. Raise the heat and things will happen.
Yeah.
We'll never sign that bill into law allowing the Epstein files to be
Epstein files. Yeah, right. True. That's a good point. Hegseth's only play here, the dangerous part about it is his only play here is to try it. I mean, it's a mistake for him to trust in this, and he may not trust in it. It's just his only play. If I just suck up as hard as I can and do anything he says and then talk about how awesome he is and then say more war crimes, you got it. He might protect me for a while, but how long will he protect you?
There's only two things you can do and he's doing them both at the same time.
Oh.
As you point out, suck up to Trump.
Yeah.
And then throw the admiral under the bus.
Yes. So, and it only lasts as long as Donald Trump feels comfortable. If he starts to feel uncomfortable, he just changes his mind, changes his position, pretends it was his position all along. You're fired. I mean, how many times did he do this where I only bring the best people? The first term was full of, term was full of
run against socialism. Oh, man, damn, I like that guy.
Yeah, right. That was kind of astonishing.
At least Stefanik said, wait, what?
Right.
That was our whole campaign against Kathy Hochul.
Yeah. And I mean, we see this 1,000 times. This term, last term, hiring somebody. Oh, they're great. They're wonderful. They're fantastic. Laura Loomer finds
no one but himself and maybe his daughter because he thinks his daughter's a little mini me.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's well, great. I can't wait for the day to come. So Judge Napolitano, with the word judge right there in the chyron, says, it's a war crime. Although it's funny, he doesn't really he stumbled a little bit in saying this is an act of, it was an act of war. The first one, the missile launch, the first one was, I guess, an act of war, though maybe not. It may have just been murder all by itself.
Probably wasn't, and that was illegal too, but that's another story.
Right.
Given the benefit of the doubt and assume that it was legal, the second one clearly wasn't. That's what everybody's honing on, and people who watch Newsmax are hearing this.
That is true. We spent a good deal of time on it yesterday, pointing out, the first launch was likely a war crime too, and there's no war going on, and that was, you've lost. Another one of these moments. If you lost who? George Will. This was George Will wrote something. I didn't put it aside because it was George Will, but he did say Pete Hegseth is in an interesting position. He has committed a war crime without a war, which is really saying something. So that was pretty bad. But I'm just pointing out that Napolitano, he can't believe the position he's in. And having to say this, and you're like, your mouth and brain are not prepared for saying the Secretary of War has committed a war crime. One, because there's no Secretary of War.
I would point out, which many of the critics in Washington, including the Congress, are saying, because only we, the Congress, have the power to change the name.
I'm switching over to,
in little ways and large, claiming back our power that you think you have over us.
I'm switching over to Secretary of War because it gives you the entree to say Secretary of War Crimes, of course, and it puts you in the right frame of mind for it.
Secretary of War Crimes happens to be running the Secretary of Defense.
Yes.
Running the Department of Defense.
He's wearing a Department of Defense suit, calling it the Department of War. And Yeah, it was just Napolitano was
they call it X.
Unprepared for that. And
you know what? While we're on the topic, it's a Triborough Bridge. Don't try to rename it. In the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and give up, okay?
Yeah.
And it's the Bronx Zoo. Not enough of this stuff.
Oh, did they rename that? I missed that one.
They tried. They tried to rename all those things. It doesn't work.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough. Well, there's still holdouts in my area about National Airport. So
there you go.
Believe me, we're old.
So, ZTO, Trump administration lawyers now warn boat strike may be illegal as Hegseth passes the buck. That's the headline. If the Washington Post is right, then a crime was committed, a Trump administration lawyer tells ZTO as Pete Hegseth tries to pass the buck. And again, this is an important subtext here. Pete Hegseth blaming the admiral in North Carolina directing the strike as being the one who committed the war crime is, how shall I put this in a delicate fashion, not endearing himself to the rest of the Department of Defense.
Okay. Yeah, that'll hurt. People will be upset about that. And what can I tell you? Oh, by the way, smartest play in all of this. Smartest play award goes to, what was his name? Admiral Halsey, who resigned.
That's the one who resigned.
Yeah.
He's going to be in Congress
I know what's
testifying
happening
sooner or later. We know that.
You would think, and he'll be possibly be a little bit more cooperative about it than whatever. Mitch, what's his name? I forget the. All I remember is
Bradley.
Yeah, Bradley. That's an easy, high-ranking brass.
Milton Bradley, the guy that makes the game.
Right. Oh, I love those. Oh well, he went bad at the end.
Mitch.
But yeah.
So right. To this point, says ZDO, Trump's second term has been marked by proud swaggering lawlessness and a general attitude of what are you going to do about it? Indeed, there's no legal basis for Trump's bombing campaign on boats supposedly carrying drug smugglers into the Caribbean and Pacific, and that hasn't stopped Trump and Vance from joking and laughing about it. As absurd as it sounds, it is unusual to watch this president and his top officials refuse to take credit for a decision to kill two people.
Yeah. They're usually pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Trump and Hegseth's ongoing effort to pin the double-tap strike on an admiral comes as attorneys working in different federal agencies have stressed to senior personnel it'd be likely incredibly illegal to deliberately commit the kind of no-quarter strike the team Trump carried out on September 2nd. We went over that in detail with Jack Goldsmith's piece and Ryan Goodman's observations on Monday. I mean, it's just flat out illegal. The Department of Defense manual says so. Two administration officials tell ZDO that it's incredibly illegal. Both sources are lawyers by trade. I am not a lawyer, and I'm telling you it's illegal. Some of these Trump administration attorneys have cited the Department of Defense's own law of war manual in their frank analysis. One of these officials says they gravely described the situation to senior government staff as a problem and not something that can be laughed off. When a lawyer tells you you have a problem, or a doctor tells you you have a problem, it isn't simply suggesting, you know what, you have a problem.
Honest to God,
like, pay attention.
When a plumber tells you have a problem, you probably listen. It doesn't matter who the expert is.
You have a problem. Anybody with expertise tells you have a problem. Right. You better listen.
I'm your septic tank guy. Oh, he's not important. Well, wait till you hear the problem.
Yeah, wait till next week.
Yeah.
I'm not even a military lawyer, and I knew this would be illegal, the other Trump administration official says. I've said as much to several colleagues and would have told people that had I been in a position to know about the operation in advance, there's defending the homeland, then there's criminal behavior, as Judge Napolitano pointed out, rightly.
Yes.
If the Washington Post is right, then a crime was committed. Just as attorneys in the Trump administration began to wake up to this uncomfortable notion the past several days, the president's so-called Secretary of War, Hegseth, started to shovel the blame for the strike elsewhere.
Yes.
While the administration initially gave a huffy response to the Huffington Post, it is now confirmed the one thing senior officials have denied is Hegseth's role. Instead, Hegseth and officials have pointed the finger at Admiral Frank M. Mitch Bradley, who led Joint Special Operations Command at the time, is the man responsible. Bradley's since been promoted. In October, the Senate confirmed him as the head of the U.S. Special Operations Command, which oversees this Joint Operations Command.
Yes. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, one other thing from Napolitano that I think is important, that he made a good point, which was that I guess in terms of how bad is the war crime? Like, is this a war crime or a really terrible war crime? Well, they're all terrible. Obviously, that's what they are. But pointing out
terrible.
That not only was it, okay, well, fine, so it's against the law of war to go back and kill the survivors. Big deal. But not only pointing out, well, the law of war demands that you not kill the survivors. No, it's more than that, actually. The law of war demands that you rescue the survivors. You can't just decide, let them drown either, which is, by the way, is Megyn Kelly's idea.
HORS, hors d'oeuvres. They're hors to combat. And that means you really, it's not like the boat is turning, even though it's capsized, it still has guns pointed at you.
It does not.
And it's trying to fire as it goes down. Well, then you can hit them again.
Yeah. There were no guns on board. They weren't firing any of them. Those guys are, so there was an affirmative duty to rescue them, to take them in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And instead they said, not only, like if they had flown away, harder to prove. I didn't know if I saw them or not. But if you prove it, war crime right there. Turn around and murder them.
That's
a war crime.
It's like stealing a horse in Texas. Them's a hanging offense.
Yeah, exactly.
How
true.
serious could it be?
Meanwhile, the White House has been trying out like this line. Okay, well, we'll distance Hegseth from it, or we'll blame somebody else. Which usually in the progression of things, I just want to point out, there's a whole continuum for these sorts of things. And we are now at the stage where they may transition to the highest level of denialism. War crimes are good, actually. And we're really close to getting there. The commentators are out there already floating that line. It was actually good. We should have tortured them in the water, not just killed them. Megyn Kelly says so.
Going further with Zito, multiple sources in and close to the Pentagon told Zito this week how livid they were that Trump, Hegseth, and company seemed so eager to scapegoat others in the chain of command they could at least try to be less obvious about what they're doing, says a Defense Department source. One of the things I like about Zito is they don't pull punches, they don't mealy-mouthed stuff the way the New York Times and Washington Post do, although you got to give the Post credit for this. The Post is the one that broke this story, and somebody pointed out on Twitter, I think I sent it to you. Maybe I could even find it. Sam Stein. As a meta point, kind of hilarious to watch the Post rip off major Department of Defense scoop after major Department of Defense scoop as the Pentagon kicks them out and replaces them with sycophants who aren't real reporters. So it hasn't stopped the Post from getting to the story. Hegseth's ploy has failed.
Yeah. Well, good. I hope that that's the case. As far as the scoopiness of it goes, I mean, it may be that this is where I heard it first, but I do feel like this has been a weird couple of days as, there's this scoop of, well, they went back and they killed the survivors. But I feel like we knew that in September, but I guess the new news is, well, we did it because Hegseth said kill everybody. That must be the scoop part. But it was a war crime in September.
To me, though. Yeah. It was, but look, I mean, do you remember, and I'm afraid you do,
all right.
Stories about Hillary's server?
Yes, I don't. It was very small story. People didn't pay any attention to it in the newspapers.
But they pounded it over and over and over every single day. That's what this is like.
Jerry.
What about how old Joe Biden is? Every single day. What about inflation under Joe Biden? Every single day.
Yeah.
That's what this is like. Yes. And good. This is what they're supposed to do.
It is. That's true. I'm not going to take it away from them. And it may very well be the case that the reason I feel like I knew in September, and I did, because I remember them saying, hey, they went back and killed survivors. I wasn't in the Caribbean myself. I was reading it somewhere. It may very well have been the Washington Post. Plus, they may have also cracked this story of now we have people saying Hegseth said, yeah, murder, do it. Okay. That's the second level to the story. It was a war crime when they reported the first time, but it didn't sit that way until
now. Know who did the ordering. Somehow. I mean, it's this, this was troublesome and they're going to investigate it. It's a one-day story.
Yes.
The Secretary of War Crimes at the Department of Defense directly ordered this.
That is true.
Is another major story.
And so I'm glad. Yeah, okay. Kudos to all the reporters who were working on this. I would not have known it unless you had told me. So, and now there's interest in getting the tapes. Yesterday at the stupid cabinet meeting, Hegseth spent his time trying to defend himself. And by the way, misunderstanding the application of the phrase fog of war.
Yes.
In which
there was so much smoke from the burning ship that I couldn't see. It was the fog of war. Or as we like to say here at the Pentagon, the smoke of war.
I mean, wow, that was pretty amazing. But yeah, he was basically saying, I couldn't see whether there were survivors. And that you would have, you might present that as a defense at some point. I thought I was firing at
it's not a war, so how could it be foggy? Come on.
Well, there is that. But yeah, and then so, right, well, and it was interesting too, as he was admonishing reporters for asking the question and saying, you reporters, you sit in your air-conditioned offices and da-da-da. And by the way, as it turns out, the Washington Post reporter working on this is an Iraq / maybe Afghanistan also veteran, like actually considerably more combat experience than Hegseth by a large margin. But apparently now has air conditioning and so can no longer render judgment on anything.
Yeah, so let me lecture you about what fog of war means.
Yeah, and
so Zidio goes on to say, multiple sources in and close to the Pentagon told Zidio this week how livid they were that Trump, Hegseth, and company seemed so eager to scapegoat others in the chain of command. They could at least try to be less obvious as a Defense Department source.
Yeah, it is.
After all, the boat bombing is Trump's policy, and the president previously expressed in his first term a desire to have his administration murder suspected criminals in the streets in Chicago and elsewhere. Fucking kill them all, he would say, according to a former White House official. Trump's defense secretary, for his part, initially responded to the Post reporting with an emphatic non-denial before mocking this story with a meme image depicting a children's book character bombing a boat,
Franklin,
carrying a purported narco-terrorist.
They're against that. They already wrote to them. Please don't do that.
Right. Republican Senate Armed Services Committee Chair Roger Wicker and his House counterpart Mike Rogers have inquired with the Pentagon for more information. Asked about the strike, Mike Turner, a former chairman of the Intelligence Committee, told CBS, obviously, if that occurred, that would be very serious, and I agree it would be an illegal act. Rand Paul went further and said, both strikes are actually illegal.
That
An
is
extremely
correct.
fair point, says Zidio. Again, this is so much better than the way the Post and the Times generally suck up to the president when they write things. Noting that there has been no congressional involvement in the administration's unilateral strikes, the increasing splintering among Republicans comes at a tough political moment for Trump.
Oh, yeah?
Some party lawmakers recently rejected Trump's efforts to cover up the Epstein files.
All right,
House, you think we wouldn't mention the Epstein files? It's ubiquitous. Their House majority continues to shrink. Trump and his party are tanking in the polls. It also comes as the administration narrative around the second boat strike continues to, shall we say, evolve.
And they're against evolution.
Right.
All right. Congratulations, Zidio. My favorite Chef Boyardee meal in a can would have been if they had just gone ahead and made them. But all right. Yeah, well done there.
And then everybody's researching when Hegseth, as you pointed out, said that it's illegal to
Yes. I have that audio if you would like to hear it.
I believe he said it doesn't help him any.
All right, he said it.
But he's also said multiple times, I feel restricted by these stupid rules, and I don't want to follow these rules.
I hate
And he
rules.
said that in various and sundry forums. So, therefore,
that's true.
And I have
His
George
book.
Will here, A Sickening Moral Slum of Administration is the title. Regarding Venezuela, Ukraine, and much more, Trump and his acolytes are worse than simply incompetent.
Would you send that link? Add that to the pile because
I will, because the line is great. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth seems to be a war criminal without a war, an interesting achievement. It's a great line.
It is.
Reminds me of Peggy Noonan in her better days. Both of them can write.
Yeah. True. They had a way with words. I wish that they would keep them to themselves sometimes. But yeah, at least we get to do the old, well, they've even lost George Will. I think they lost George Will a long time ago, but you could just keep losing him over and over again.
Right. His order was reported by the Post from two sources. Quote, the order was to kill everybody, one said, and has not been explicitly denied by Hegseth. Trump says Hegseth told him that he said he didn't say that. If Trump is telling the truth about Hegseth and Hegseth is telling the truth to Trump, it's strange that, per the Post report, the commander of the boat-destroying operation said he ordered the attack on the survivors to comply with Hegseth's order.
Yeah, which he shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
All right, so there's lots of blame to go around, and it can, by the way, sentencing the admiral to prison is not exclusive of this, doing the same with Hegseth. They were both necessary in this, and they're both independently guilty, and co-defendants as well. So,
as others who are actually military veterans and positions of leadership have pointed out, should Admiral Bradley suggest that these people be killed, it's Hegseth's job to say, you can't do that. As your superior, I have to point out that would be a war crime.
Yeah, ostensibly
that's Hegseth's role. That's why he's there.
Yeah, supposedly the benefit of having a civilian command structure on top of the military is that, they're not going to just say go do war crimes. But as it turns out, the instigation for war crimes comes from the civilians. Yay.
So Will goes on to say, 44 days after the survivors were killed, the 4-star admiral who headed the U.S. Southern Command announced he would be leaving that position just a year into what is usually a 3-year stint. He did not say why. Inference are, however, permitted.
Oh, I'm thinking, now he left after the strike, didn't he?
Yes.
So what was this? I guess what must have happened is people are not making, I don't think they're connecting these dots in the articles, but they must know. How come Mitch is the one involved if the other guy was there at the time? And the answer must be, well, I'm not ordering that because it's a war crime. I can't resign fast enough to get out of here before you do the strike, but I'm quitting. You need to find, and they must, if you're not going to do it, we'll get someone who can. And then they did, and now he's like, oh no.
Elliot Richardson resigned. Look it up.
Yeah. So I don't know why that's not a bigger talking point. I mean, I guess it's I guess that's secondary. The guy's committed war crimes. Let's nail that down first, and then we can do the tick-tock on who quit rather than do it.
Right.
Okay, interesting.
So the killing of the survivors, says Will, by this moral slum of an administration should nauseate Americans. A nation incapable of shame is dangerous, not least to itself, as the recent peace plan for Ukraine demonstrated.
Hey, look, another thing that's in the news and won't go away.
Marco Rubio, who was Secretary of State and Trump's national security advisor, seemed to be neither when the president released his 28-point plan for Ukraine's dismemberment.
Yeah.
Rubio, whose well-known versatility of convictions is perhaps not infinite.
Okay. Clever.
Told some of his alarmed former Senate colleagues the plan was just an opening gambit. But, of course, hours later, he reversed himself, saying on social media the U.S. authored the plan. The administration's floundering might reflect more than its characteristic incompetence. In a darkening world, systemic weaknesses of prosperous democracies are becoming clear. So then he goes on to say about how the world is going to is hell in a handbasket and all of that, and, shake fist at clouds in George Will style. But, he's right about Rubio. He's certainly right about Hegseth.
Yeah.
It's horrible stuff, and there you have it.
Okay. We're glad to have their contribution to it. I am reminded, by the way, as you pointed out, about Hegseth, and then we don't absolutely need to hear the audio. Well, I'll do it later. But it was, as you pointed out, he's also said, hey, to hell with all these rules. And apparently that was something that he wrote about in his book. He has an actual book. I can't believe it, but they all do. And in his book, which was, I think, unwisely titled People's Exhibit 1, and it wasn't actually, but it will be later. He, says, well, when I was in Iraq, apparently the story goes, he told the troops under his command, and I can't believe it, but there were some, you can ignore the laws of war and kill some of these guys extrajudicially because it's awesome and it'll make you feel like G.I. Joe. Let's do it. And then later, apparently 2016, said, no, that's crazy, because he was talking about, well, there's a Democratic president. We should be disobeying his orders because most of them are unconstitutional anyway, because after all, he's black. So, we can't obey those things. So let's all get ready to disobey orders from the so-called commander-in-chief. Oh, well, now the commander-in-chief is orange. We can do anything. It's an unusual situation, to say the least.
I'm looking at memes of extremely large bags of popcorn as the Trump administration and Hegseth in particular, throw each other into the bus. It's a thing.
It's terrific. More buses, please. I guess. I don't know. Do we need more or just heavier buses with spiky tires? Is there any way to get that?
Battling buses of World War II, as Mad Magazine used to do.
All right. Well, or maybe we can put some tank treads on the buses. Something like that. Is there some? There's got to be some way. Maybe monster trucks. Is there a way to get them thrown under monster trucks? That would be.
Oh yeah.
At least a spectator sport.
Elbow grease.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's a hell of a thing, and it's exploding in their face. And I guess I was wondering, what do we have? What in the world could possibly displace Epstein files from the headlines? And I suppose war crimes would have to be high on the list. And so it makes sense.
Well, he's trying everything.
But it was pointed out
that, the 30 days are ticking. And, there's a law. And it's not just a bill.
Law
it's a law.
schmaw, I guess. Yeah, right. That's true. I have noticed. I mean, there's been a downward trend in the number of, social media posts and articles written about Epstein because now the thing is signed. And I think Trump thinks, I signed it, so it's over. It goes away. But right, then the 30-day thing. And then so pretty soon I should be counting that down because pretty soon they'll be like, well, then, hey, where is it? Of course, the Trump administration will be delaying and suing and saying no, and it will turn the 30 days into a year. But it will begin to generate headlines again soon.
Well, you have war crimes. You have special elections pointing to a blue wave come November. Yes. I mean, there's other stories going on
Christmas.
Out there. Yeah. And, it's the holidays and weather and, Black Friday. People spend a lot of money, but that's because they were borrowing to do it. And they don't plan on paying it back anytime soon. And
yes.
That's
bad. Okay. Right.
We spent more than ever. Well, there's this thing called inflation. We generally spend more than ever every year.
You could have bought less than ever and still have spent more than ever. It's easy to do.
They bought less objects and spent more money. That's exactly what happened. So people looking at Black Friday numbers and saying, well, that shows the economy is healthy. Actually, it shows the opposite.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well, something AI, and I don't know what. Oh, well, there was a connection to an AI story. Actually, I saw somebody circulating on Blue Sky. This is why AI summaries for breaking news are terrible. Never listen to them. The AI summary for the story of the Roswell, not New Mexico, mayoral election was, that didn't happen. The incumbent won. He won in November. What's wrong with you? Like, you don't know how to read runoff election results, do you? Wow.
Exactly.
Never trust them. Okay, well, we have real intelligence here on this show, and we'll do it again tomorrow if you're willing.
Let me just read you the Washington Post headline, which just popped up. Surprisingly tough Tennessee election reveals House GOP has a base problem.
Aha, good. They're very base.
Conservative support on the wane.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Man, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm going to talk about some of it. And I'm going to be doing that because other people have already talked about it. By the way, there's like 15 different directions I could and might go in here. Let me open up some of these things so I can play them for you, although they're on the wrong computer for all of this. But all right, too many people talking about too many things on social media. I see something and I go to grab it, and then 15 of you say something else really interesting and you bury it, and now I can't find it. But Just Security had it, and maybe if I go to their feed, I will find it. But I don't know. Maybe we don't need to spend time reading it because I think it's inherently understood by most of the audience. But they were making the excellent point that these war crimes with respect to what's going on in the Caribbean, here it is. Killing shipwrecked survivors is not just illegal. It endangers U.S. service members. Just a brief reminder that the law of war exists because everybody needs it. And once one side begins ignoring it, it encourages others to ignore it. And the reason that the United States, which usually stands in defiance of international dictates of all kinds, or very frequently does, particularly under Republican presidents, but why it sticks to the law of war thing is eventually American troops, for some strange reason, mysteriously find themselves involved in combat all over the place, all over the world at all times. And every once in a while, that means that they fall into the hands of the enemy. And it is expected that the enemy will treat them with dignity and respect as required under the laws of combat. And it's expected because we used to treat people that way too. And now that we don't, we're going to find difficulties. It won't just be Venezuelans or Colombians or, for that matter, Trinidadians who want revenge. It will be others around the world who say they don't respect the laws of combat. Why should we do it? Especially if we might not even be state actors. So I have a feeling that there will be 10, 15, 20 good points in a very long read over at Just Security, but I think you all kind of get the sense that it's just inherently true that this is extraordinarily dangerous. And if you want to know why or who they're citing for all of this, Mark Nevitt, who wrote the thing up right away, goes to Jack Goldsmith, whose name was mentioned just the other day by Greg. Goldsmith's on the case. I don't even know if last we heard from Goldsmith whether it was this we were talking about. It could have been any number of other things that likewise are causing legal troubles for the administration. It might even have been the illegally appointed U.S. attorneys around the country, for that matter. Jack Goldsmith is kind of everywhere on these things. All right, let's see. Other things I wanted to mention. Well, let's play that. We might as well, because I have it handy. Pete Hegseth in 2016 arguing that there have to be consequences for war crimes. And, well, you'll hear the rest of it here. Sano Tree has been circulating this one, and I appreciate it. So let's play the audio just to get it on record. He once said this.
Are some guys at Leavenworth who made really bad choices on the battlefield. And I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
Yeah, well, there is that belief. There is that ethos. At least there was in 2016. I don't know who he's addressing. He's doing it, I guess, in the capacity as a Fox News commentator at this point. It is interesting that he's very eloquent about it. Abject war crimes, really all war crimes, but the most abject ones. And there is no war crime more abject, I guess. I don't know. Certainly no example clearer than the one they actually give you in the book. Shooting shipwrecked survivors. Holy cow. I mean, it doesn't get any plainer than that. And what can I tell you? Yeah, but I do want to point out that in his mind at that time, I don't even think that at that point, you could argue it's 2016. He hasn't had his mind warped by Trump and Trump era politics yet, maybe. But he was still pretty crazy when he was there at Fox News early on. So who knows? He's always been a bit of look, he's tattooed in ways that make it obvious that he's always been a bit of a wackadoodle. But in 2016, you could imagine that his head is still screwed on straight. He understands, as most of us claimed to in 2016, that crazy ass war crimes are murders and they're problematic and there has to be accountability for them. But I also think that he's probably coming around to the idea, or probably coming around to adding that the military won't follow those orders because they're illegal. We're instructed all the time that you can't obey clearly illegal orders. I do think he had in mind, well, it's the Obama administration. Everybody knows the Obama administration is constantly giving illegal orders to the military. Things like don't discriminate against fellow military service members based on race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, what have you. And that's clearly illegal. So we shouldn't be following those orders. But once again, it should probably be pointed out. He just said the same thing that the administration is now investigating, allegedly, purportedly investigating Mark Kelly for saying. And I guess you could now say, well, when are you going to launch an investigation into Hegseth? Except they'll say, duh, of course we're never going to launch an investigation into Hegseth. First, no, I didn't say that. Here's the video of you saying that. Well, I said that, but it means this. That can't be right either. Well, it's actually a good thing that I said this. Well, and it was a good thing that he said that in 2016. Anyway, there's that. Plus, somewhere along the line, I guess I got to dig this up too, there was the mention of his book, which I think was published prior to 2016, and which he tells the story of how he instructed his troops that rules are for suckers and we should just basically kill everybody. That was just about yesterday, and I think I can dig that one up. But I'll just leave a note for myself, which I'll ignore later, and then follow up with a second email to Scott saying, oh yeah, I meant to tell everybody about his book. I'll search it out later. You get the gist. He did say that it wasn't his book, and he's an idiot, and it'll be used against him in any war crimes trial if they ever have one, but it's also still a big if. All right. Other things deserving of your attention, and there are many. Something else from out of the cabinet meeting, apparently. This is the second or third time it's come up, but Oliver Willis was covering it over at Daily Kos. Trump going back and forth about whether or not affordability is a concern for people, is a real thing at all. And then, of course, sort of revealing his rich kid. I was going to say rich kid makes good, but actually rich kid makes bad. He lost a considerable amount of money that he was handed over by his dad, but you get the idea. He was always wealthy. It seems he thinks this is a winner of a political position to take, that affordability is a made-up democratic thing. And I mean, like, as a human English speaker, it's difficult to come around to understanding that position unless you're the kind of person for whom affordability of anything has never actually been an issue. I don't understand when people say they can't afford something. That's not a thing. Not for you. But although that's been the case for two reasons for you. One, you grew up wealthy and then were handed millions of dollars, and so affordability was at that point not an issue. But you've brought things to the brink of bankruptcy enough times that affordability should have become an issue, but then affordability stayed not an issue for you because you said, I will steal these things rather than pay for them. So I don't really still understand affordability and what the big, what are you all crying about? Oliver covers it that way, like I said, under the headline of Trump claims, quote, affordability to be made up democratic thing. During his televised cabinet meeting on Tuesday, President Donald Trump claimed that concerns about the affordability of goods and services are a, quote, fake narrative, or as he would say, fake narrative. That's now got to be a part of my... You want to hear my great new Trump impression? There you go. Pretty good, right? Trump also falsely claimed that the entire issue is a scam by the Democratic Party, which, again, I should point out, if they had stopped there. Well, this whole thing is a scam. All right. Sir, a follow-up question. Is that good or bad? Because, scams are great, but this one is a scam by the Democrat Party, so it's a bad thing. Trump's ridiculous comments are even stranger because just a few days ago, he touted himself as the affordability president, and there's a YouTube of him doing that, although, one, it takes a minute for him to do it. Two, I have it on the wrong computer. Three, he says he's the affordability president. You get it? I mean, this proves it, but it's true. Take my word for it. There's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about. Affordability. I guess we could play it and see how well. I haven't heard the clip. So sometimes, in addition to imitating his voice, I try to imitate the cadence and the emphasis, and I do often wonder whether I have it right. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody, Trump said. He went on to say the word affordability is a con job by the Democrats, and said it was a Democrat scam. And they add in brackets the IC there, so because we don't like to do it the way he does, Democrat scam. Well, I guess I could just turn up the volume on this and play it off the laptop.
And, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about, affordability. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. They just say it. Affordability. I inherited the worst inflation in history. There was no affordability. Nobody could afford anything.
It's funny that he thinks about it as an inheritance, but okay. Anyway, I'm just wondering whether the phrasing is similar or not. We don't need to waste any more time on bad audio. There's more, after all, if we really want to waste time on it. Trump sang a completely different tune. I better mute things so auto-playing video doesn't interrupt this. Trump sang a completely different tune on November 29th in a post on Truth Social where he wrote, "I am the affordability president. Talk loudly and proudly, President DJT." And there's more to it, but that's the quote that matters. Trump did not explain why the term is a, quote, scam when Democrats use it, but perfectly fine when he does. He also expressed purported concern about the high cost of living during his White House meeting with New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani 2 weeks ago. Mamdani cruised to victory on a platform of addressing affordability, and Trump incorrectly claimed that the Democrat has, quote, the same ideas that I have. Trump has made affordability worse for middle and working class families since he took over an economy in recovery under former President Joe Biden. Trump has pushed tariffs against the advice of economic experts that have increased costs, which are being passed on to consumers. Trump has overseen 9 straight months of manufacturing job losses as a result. And of course, people used to think that tariffs were great for protecting America from job losses. But apparently that's not the case anymore either. Meanwhile, as Americans struggle to pay bills and look for jobs, Trump has spent his time obsessing over his plans for a gigantic ballroom at the White House. He reportedly has been feuding with the architect because he wants the new structure to be almost twice the size of the existing White House building, not to mention twice the size of the original plans for the ballroom itself. Despite Trump's rhetoric on affordability, he and other Republicans have long shown an aversion to using the power of the government to address costs. Okay, this is getting a little more theoretical. I mean, it's good stuff, and you always want to hear from Oliver. These are good points. See what else they launch us into. But yeah, Republicans and conservatives have historically not cared. They paid lip service to the topic while focusing on increasing the wealth of the rich. The failure to handle affordability has already led to Republicans losing races in places like New York City, Virginia, Rhode Island, and other races in safe GOP territory, right? Like Roswell, where the hell was it? Not New Mexico. Damn it. Was it Georgia? All right. And they have simultaneously been drifting towards Democrats, these safe GOP territories, describing a concern held by millions of Americans as merely fake narrative and scam is unlikely to shift things back into the Republican column. No, it's going to make people resent Republicans for denying the thing that's right in front of their faces. And good. To the extent that that keeps happening, that's fantastic. I did see another thing earlier on Blue Sky, which I thought was well put. I think I can probably find it quickly. There we are. Who's telling us about this? It's on the address, the identifier on Blue Sky. Theophyte, is that right? Reverend Howard Arson. Is that right? Is that an actual name? Am I missing a message about a character or something? I'm not sure. Anyway, good point made here. It is crazy that the president is essentially just the project manager for a medium-sized hotel ballroom who tweets things which would get someone with that actual job fired instantaneously. And it's true. They have sort of handed him this ballroom project, or he has adopted the ballroom project as his major focus. And everything else, well, we have people for that. And then, all right, make it look like you're in charge. Have a cabinet meeting. And then, he's focusing all his time on that. It did make me wonder, though, as he keeps saying, it's not going to cost the American people a dime for this ballroom, which is almost certainly not going to be possible. It's not that they can't raise the money privately. It's that, well, for one thing, it was leveraged. Those donations were leveraged out of the donor's hands by the use of the governmental power, which, we otherwise would never have been able to convince people to give him that money. But also, I'm sure that there's also preparatory work to it. And of course, the time and energy that he forces government workers, staffers of his, to spend paying attention to this thing is also money we won't get back and won't be able to recover, and is government money. But, anyway, it also made me wonder, while he's saying they won't pay a dime for the ballroom, has there been coverage? I imagine there has been, and we've just ignored it in favor of other things. But coverage of, like, hey, who's paying for all the gold doodads that are being glued to the Oval Office wall? Never mind, the various listening devices and cameras that might be embedded in them. But who's paying for all that stuff? And I imagine that they're just using White House budget for that. In the meantime, telling people, you can't have, I don't know, healthcare or food, because I got to glue more gold stuff to the walls. I'm just sort of curious about that. By the way, and speaking of what he's saying, here, Reverend Howard Arson here, saying the things he tweets out or says live in front of everybody on camera would get any ballroom construction manager fired, because who cares about ballroom construction, for one thing. And for another, hey, you're racist, we can get another person to oversee this ballroom construction. He spent time yesterday. This is on his mind, I think, because it popped up again. I'm sure it's always been on his mind because he hates Ilhan Omar and black people. So, I mean, that it's a twofer in that she's black, so it's pretty easy for him to make that transition. As a result, look, he's constantly being criticized by her for good reason, and so he hates her, which is stupid. But now he says, the reason she hates me is she's originally from Somalia. Nah, that's not it. But, that's the only thing that makes sense in his mind. So he hates Somalians. And so what does this mean? It came back up again because of the shooting in D.C. the other day. The two service members, National Guard woman service member, killed in that attack. And by the way, I note, for the record, somebody's been pointing out, hey, still no order to lower the flags for her. I think that's a little bit unusual. I thought Trump would be all over that. Anyway, but killed by well, we read the story yesterday, a CIA-connected operator from Afghanistan who we evacuated because he helped us in Afghanistan, the sort of thing that Donald Trump ordinarily would have approved of. Except now there's been this shooting, and in his mind, what happened? Afghanistan, something, short nap. Somalia, also a crap country, one of those asshole countries that everybody hates, and he just sort of off on track. Had nothing to do with Somalia, but he figured he'd launch an attack anyway, and he's mad at Ilhan Omar, constantly mad at Tim Walz for having run against him. It was a very odd situation. Anyway, so yesterday, basically after snoozing, I guess they must have poked him and said, Mr. President, anything you want to say in conclusion at today's meeting? Although I also understand that nobody was prepared for it to end right then and there. But all of you, thank you very much. You're great patriots. By the way, I hate Somalia. They're horrible people. And he goes on to say, I don't know what prompted it. Ilhan Omar, she's garbage. Her friends are garbage. Somalians, we don't want them here. There's a whole rant, and it's outrageously racist, crazy, insane. The sort of thing that all by itself would have people saying, oh my God, he's mentally unstable. We got to do something about it. But I was also struck by, since we brought up earlier in a conversation, Hillary Clinton. Hey, you remember when there was a big story about her having an email server? Yeah. I do. Remember that big story about her saying that, half of Trump's supporters are they could be in one or another basket of deplorables, right? You remember that? Well, all Somalis are horrible garbage people, obviously. So, the accusation is objectively twice as bad. Hillary Clinton only said half of you were deplorables. But, by the way, so the saving grace here is that Trump didn't say they were baskets or belonged in baskets of garbage. They just are garbage. And that's an okay thing we can get away with. But baskets of deplorables, well, no. Please don't bring baskets into it. No coverage of that, naturally. Anyway, I guess it's probably best if I don't play the horrific racist rant on air, just in terms, you won't believe it if you've never heard it. but this audience heard it. Anyway, I wanted to say, hey, that's gross. And point out, no baskets involved here. But somehow this won't get the attention that it deserves. And I guess I could make up for that by playing it on the air and giving it the attention. But you know what I'm saying. Wow. Gosh, there's an awful lot going on, and I really don't want to get too distracted. Anyway, I thought that was an important point to bring up. And then, oh, yes, I also mentioned to you that there was like super crazy amounts of stupid, unbefitting praise that was heaped on him in the cabinet meeting. And that's true. But there was, I guess, also ridiculous praise heaped upon him outside of the cabinet meeting by other Republicans. And who is this one? Senator Roger Marshall, the senator I keep forgetting is a senator. I guess we might as well just play this one on the air because why not? Audio clips are fun. Let's see if I can get this transferred over to the big computer. Apparently not. It's going to take 25 minutes. I don't know. Why is this not happening? There we go. So Roger Marshall, I guess he's doing this on, is it Fox News Air or is it one of the new fakes? Who is this? I don't know. Wake Up America. I don't know what the hell that one's on. That could be Newsmax. I don't know. There's no way for me to tell. Is it in the Post anywhere? No. Anyway, I'll play you it's a longer clip than I thought, but okay.
Your reaction to this? The president's recent reveal that he received a cardiac MRI during his checkup at Walter Reed. Now, the legacy media, immediately Newsmax, jumped to question his health. I'm an older guy. My doctor ordered me to get an MRI, a cardiac MRI. I still haven't done it yet, so I need to get on that.
Because this is, all right, one, this is Newsmax if you didn't hear me over the noise, but two, of course, Newsmax would go this direction. Well, I'm an older guy. I got a cardiac MRI. It wasn't that people weren't freaking out they got a cardiac MRI. It was that he got an MRI and that he said, I don't know what part of the body it was they were doing an MRI on. And you're an older guy, but the thing is, you got a cardiac MRI because you know what cardiac means. It may very well be that they said, sir, we're going to do a cardiac MRI on you. And he said, I don't know what that is. What's a cardiac? Anyway, but listen to Roger Marshall now given the opportunity to praise him for his health, which is something that is the status of which is hidden from us. And so you can say anything you want, I guess.
But it's standard practice. To me, they ignored Joe Biden for years, and now they are just grasping at straws. Yeah. Can you kind of shed some light on this? This is really normal.
By the way, why would he be able to shed any light on it? He's a senator.
Isn't it for older guys?
Not a doctor, just a senator.
I think it's a normal executive level type of checkup. If you went to the best wellness centers in the country, they're going to order that on people probably over the age of 65. And by the way, we all have some atherosclerosis already starting to build up, some aging process, just like you would see arthritis in the joints. But I can tell you, my interactions with the president, I'm a pretty hard worker. I'll work 100, 110 hours a week. He outworks me. He's the first person I've ever known that works harder than I do. He runs around that golf course. He goes through staff.
Okay, well, time out for two things. One, okay, Roger Marshall, I just said he's not a doctor. He's a doctor. I was like listening to the chatter here. I'm like, oh, actually, it sounds like he might actually have a medical background. So he is. All right, I'm wrong about that one. But then, of course, the doctor, he's not Trump's doctor. And what do they always say about to the doctors? Don't diagnose from a distance. Don't comment on this stuff. But all right, they brought him on to do this. It's Newsmax. They don't care about the truth. We do. So we say something like he's not a doctor and he is a doctor. We say, whoops, sorry, he is a doctor. But by the way, he's running around that golf course. He very famously, A, takes a golf cart and does not do any running, and B, takes the handicapped carts. So usually they have a little flag on them, you can tell, and drives straight up onto the green, which even the handicapped drivers are told not to do, generally speaking, but if you can walk at all. But he just drives all over the place. He's not running around any golf course. Roger Marshall is not working 110 hours a week, and Donald Trump is not outworking Roger Marshall, but he has to go and say that. So, all right, There's more
members, several groups of them each day. He's in incredible shape right now, and you talk about sharp. He's playing 4-dimensional chess right now, with time being that fourth dimension.
It's funny. He's worried that the Newsmax crowd does not recognize 4 dimensions. Like, well, there's 3. There's only 3. No, time is the 4th dimension. I see. That's an unusual addition. I mean, it's true. That's usually what people are referring to as being the 4th dimension. But all right, I guess he realizes who he's talking to on Newsmax. Well, that was surprising, to say the least. But yeah, the praise is out of hand. And, even Dr. Roger Marshall going outside of the bounds of reasonable discourse in that one. He's outworking me 110 hours a week. That's an awful lot. What's the math on that one? Somebody can figure that out. I can figure it out during the break and tell you in case you don't want to spend your time that way. But, all right, you figure on a 7-day work week, it's still 16 hours. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. By the way, comment circulating on Blue Sky about that clip we just heard. Mark Kopelovich, do I have the pronunciation correct? Professor of Political Science and Public Affairs and Director of European Studies at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. 15 minutes later, I think I'm done with all of that. Thank God he's not occupying any named chairs, or I'd be here trying to pronounce those names as well. Although maybe he is, and he deserves to be too, for all I know. He seems like a nice guy and has a good comment about what Senator Marshall just said. He's working 110 hours a week, and that's just Roger Marshall, who I also doubt isn't working 110 hours a week, and Trump's outworking him. And if that's 7 days a week, and it probably is for the presidency, and probably for most senators too, that's still nearly 16 hours a day, which means basically you fall asleep, wake up, work, fall asleep. And if you're taking time off during the weekends, like say flying to your pervert sex dungeon golf club for the weekend, which we can all see that he's doing, and you take weekends out of the equation, that is 22 hours a day, leaving 2 hours for texting on Truth Social. Of course, not sleep. That is reserved for work time, like cabinet meetings. It explains why he's so tired. Anyway, there's just no way any of this is true. I mean, to the extent that they believe it's true, I guess we could say, well, culturally speaking, Donald Trump comes from the place where playing golf is working. Why is that the case in Donald Trump's, or what remains of Donald Trump's brain? I built this golf course, and so I'm just checking it out, making sure it's still in good shape for the members of my fabulous business golf club. Blah, blah, blah. One, I mean, maybe kind of, sort of. Two, you didn't build it in most cases. The Trump golf course here in Virginia, nope, somebody else built that. That was an existing golf place. You purchased it and put your name on it. and raised the fees. You didn't build it, but you could say, well, I'm making sure the golf course is in good shape, which you can do by riding around and looking, and be done in an hour, much less time spent than I also want to hit the golf ball to see if it goes places and gravity is still working. Okay, sure. Plus, of course, never mind any of that. Suppose you don't own a golf course. There's still plenty of people out there who are like, oh, yeah, golfing is working for me because I'm making deals. I'm never playing golf alone. I'm playing with other power brokers, and we're making deals. And they really are, but no, that's not really working per se. Never mind that. I mean, okay, whatever. It's golf. Sure, deals are being made. Hey, it's intellectual work that we're doing here, so it could be done anywhere. It doesn't have to be done in an office. Okay, understand that that's true. It's weird, though, that because other people's intellectual work that also doesn't have to be done in the office, you are forcing them to do in the office increasingly these days for various and sundry reasons, as Greg might say. But also, it's just not really work. It's not that intellectual work isn't work. It's that the work that you're doing, let us recognize you are compensating at a rate as though it was actually physical exertion, except we don't pay for physical exertion in this country. Your job is making sure that you get a cut of the productivity of everybody else who's working beneath you, which, by the way, is also known as a multi-level marketing scheme, I guess, is another way of putting it, too. We got a lot of, I've been seeing a lot of writing and discussion of that in the last couple of days. In fact, I can't play it because it's a half hour long, but it's a very good video that was circulated to my attention and to Greg's attention, I think, just yesterday. And I think I might even be able to find it pretty quickly just so I can mark it and send it to you and you can all think the same thing. That is to say that it's a pretty good video, whether or not you think the same thing as the content produced. But it's something we've talked about, but it's been a while since we talked about it on this show. But who sent this to me? Is it, how do you say this one out loud? If we were saying it out loud, is it Trorna? I don't know. I'm sorry. But TR0RNA at Blue Sky. Who, I'm trying to see if there's anything in the, okay, there we are. I was wondering whether there was anything in the profile that would help me understand how to pronounce this thing out loud, this name, but who, and now I'm getting a sense of, okay, now I know who we're talking about. Okay, yes. All right. Well, Orna, by the way, is the name of the band for which he is the bassist. And I guess the TR here, I don't know why I didn't put this together, in this is Travis, Travis, you remember as being the podcaster or one of the podcasters behind Irreverent Testimony. That's how we used to know him on Twitter back in the day. So that's changed. Okay. So it's Travis. Hey, Travis, you're right. Thank you for sending along that video. The video is from, someone completely different. And if I open it up, it's muted. So I can get you the name of the maker here. Drew Gooden. Not Doc Gooden, the Mets pitcher, but Drew Gooden, who I guess has his own fairly significantly more successful YouTube page with 4.67 million subscribers, and for good reason. I don't know what the bulk of his videos are about, but this one is about greed is destroying the world, and Travis says basically, he's got it right. The kids are all right. He says this is one of the best breakdowns I've seen of the current economic situation. Good thing I went into that bio to try to figure out how to say the name, because then I was able to figure out, oh yes, I know exactly who sent it. Sometimes our transition to Blue Sky obscures names and photos and bios and accounts that we all understood and were familiar with back in the Twitter days. But all right, we're resettling over here and making sure we get but this was, I thought, a very good encapsulation of things for half an hour anyway. But it reminded me of the discussions we've had back in the day about how the breaking point of the 1980s, Ronald Reagan, etc. Although here he points also to Jack Welch being primarily responsible for a lot of this, and it's true. But the shift, the bait and switch, as it were, that changed the emphasis of corporations taking care of their stakeholders into corporations taking care of only their shareholders. Shareholders are one of many stakeholders, but to hell with all the rest of them. We're going to focus only on one, and arguably the least important of our stakeholders as well, at least back in the day when America was great, the days they're trying to go back to with MAGA. Anyway, I recommend the video to you. I'll open it up so that I have it here to include in the roundup. But a lot of discussion around this subject, because there's no escaping it, because it has a lot to do with things like what would make a person like Donald Trump think, even briefly, that saying affordability was not a thing at all, much less that it was an important thing, and think he could get away with it, as opposed to people saying, oh my gosh, we should invoke the 25th Amendment. Of course, affordability is a thing. Look it up. It's in the dictionary. End of story. No, it isn't. But also, what would put us in the mindset of it's not a problem for me, and so therefore I don't imagine it's a problem for anyone. Or I'm working 110 hours, even though everybody can see me playing golf 3 times on a weekend. How could that possibly be? Well, for me, golf is work. Well, for me, taking a nap is work. Okay. Am I working 110 hours a week? Sure. Why not? We could say that it's true. But parked in Instapaper, just, I don't know. This was an interesting thing. Normally I would save it for Friday, but what the hell? We'll do it on a Wednesday. We'll do it live and do it on a Wednesday at that. From the American Prospect newsletter, the Daily Prospect. We've got prospects every day. Paul Starr writes, the historic reversal of cultural affordability. And I'm not even certain we're going to head in the right direction here, but it would make a great tangent either way. And I feel like we should read that, and then maybe we can follow up. What I should do is I should restart and then reread Paul Krugman's thing that I started yesterday, because there was a great point that I didn't get to at the end, which is now gaining currency and was being heavily trafficked on Blue Sky yesterday. And I said, well, at least I put it on the radar for you. So what do? Do we guarantee that we get through the Paul Krugman thing and then return to this? Or do we do Paul Starr first? Transition that we made demands Paul Starr somehow. The historic reversal of cultural affordability. America used to be a pioneer in democratizing culture. Let me see. Hopefully this tells us what we, gets us where we want to go from here. But I thought it was a good concept in my first scan of it. Everyone is a VIP was the motto of the Disney theme parks for decades after the opening of Disneyland in 1955. A broad middle class could afford a trip to a Disney park, and visitors had equal access to the attractions once they were there. Unfortunately, America is a long way from that middle class ideal today, and you can see the roots of this in Jack Welch in a way, if you squint. Disney and other companies now make more money from people with high incomes, and they tailor their services accordingly. So much for the old Disney theme song, when you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Well, duh, that's out now. The original Disney vision reflected a long history of popular cultural affordability that once set America apart. In fact, made it exceptional, you might say. At the time of the American Revolution and during the first half of the 19th century, European countries levied stamp taxes on newspapers to raise their prices and block the growth of cheap working-class press that might cause trouble. In contrast, as I showed in my book, The Creation of the Media, Americans didn't just revolt against the British stamp taxes. Their new government subsidized newspapers and later magazines through below-cost postal rates. By the way, good pause here for a moment. I think I saw, is it, who was saying it? I think Molly Jong Fast was the one who had said it, but I'm pretty sure it was her anyway. But pointing out, by the way, look at all the millions, billions, gazillions, who knows, being spent on AI, which nobody actually wants and is horrible for the environment. Also, by the way, well addressed in the video I earlier referenced. But imagine had even part of the amount of money being invested in that scam actually, instead of trying to create artificial intelligence, what if you had subsidized real intelligence, human intelligence, by underwriting the publications of magazines and newspapers in the way that we once did with the postal system? Think where we would be then. Oh, well, too bad. Anyway, to continue with the article, low-cost media mail rates for books and periodicals exist to this day, though they are much less significant than they once were. Anyway, in the 1830s and 1840s, a revolution of cheap print brought a popularly oriented penny press. That development initially had more to do with the popular politics of Jacksonian America than with technological advances in printing technology. Entrepreneurs developed faster presses to satisfy a market the partisan papers pioneered. In the late 19th and 20th centuries, or the late 19th and early 20th century, saw a series of low-cost innovations in popular culture. As working people had more discretionary income and free time, showmen found they could make money based on what historian David Nasaw, N-A-S-A-W, not N-A-S-S-A-U, Nasaw, I don't know, calls a new calculus of public entertainment. Lower prices and larger audiences. The new venues had to be cheap but respectable. Like the penny papers, some were named for their low price, from dime museums and penny arcades to Nickelodeons, the first popular venue for movies. Free public elementary and secondary education, public libraries, land-grant colleges with low tuition, and the 20th century's mass media, including free over-the-air radio and television, all fit into this tradition. New Deal programs supported artists, musicians, writers, and actors and left cultural legacies across the country. Public broadcasting and the early vision of the internet as a cornucopia of free culture, and I guess later porn, also aimed to fulfill the old ideals that originally motivated cheap postal rates for publications. The economist William Baumol, there's two, like, put extra L's in there. Baumol, B-A-U-M-O-L. Sorry, economist William. Raised a famous caution about cultural affordability. The costs of cultural production, according to Baumol's law, necessarily rise relative to other goods because productivity and culture cannot keep pace. His illustration was a live musical performance, which will always take musicians the same time. That's true, but of limited relevance to what has been happening lately. How commercially produced culture is designed and priced depends on the distribution of income. In a society where the top 5 or 10% have gotten richer and dominate consumer spending, many companies unsurprisingly have reoriented their business. Management consultant Daniel Carell, C-U-R-R-E-L-L, Carell, wrote in the New York Times in August that Disney's ethos began to change in the 1990s as it increased its luxury offerings. But only after the economic shock of the pandemic did the company seem to more fully abandon any pretense of being a middle-class institution. As a consultant, Carell says he saw industry after industry use data analytics to shift their focus to the big spenders in their customer base, whereas in the 1970s and before, the revenue-driving corporate profits came from the middle class. By the 1990s, it was clear that the big money was at the top. And that's what I guess the analytics would tell you, despite the fact that it used to make sense to offer a product to a broad range of people, everybody, and the more people it was available to, you could keep the price lower, do your business in volume, etc. If they say, well, it's just more efficient to offer luxury products to fewer people at higher prices. They are less sensitive to the price point, and we can double it relative to the rest of the population and sell half the product and still be okay. But if we don't, if we still sell greater numbers or raise the price even more to people who don't care about, have no elasticity when it comes to price increases, well, we can do better. And why not? That way we can also fire personnel. We don't need as many people if we're only serving a smaller crowd. Not that I think they're laying off people at the parks at Disney at the moment, but okay. Anyway, data analytics, I guess, will bring you there. The numbers don't lie. It is more efficient. It just sucks. Anyway, a different political leadership might resist these tendencies. Not only might it use taxes and other measures to ensure that the gains from economic growth are more widely shared, it might also find new ways to do what earlier generations did in making culture and education more affordable. Today, however, the Trump administration is not just cutting back, but eliminating federal support for the arts and education, supposedly for populist reasons. It's popular access that will suffer. Americans don't need to do anything unprecedented to respond to current trends and policies. They just need to remember a great American tradition of making culture affordable. It's a good point. It's a broad one. It could be made more in depth, I'm sure, but I'm glad we wrapped it up in 5 minutes because there's other things that we need to get to. This would be a weird transition, but I said I wanted to do it next. But it's a good point, and you should. It's a much better point in tandem with that video that I mentioned, which I can't just play for you, but he makes some excellent points relating to a lot of that and illustrating in one way anyway how a lot of that arose. And I think it's important for you to go and take a look. Now, I guess I got to shift gears, but because it was economic and so Paul Krugman is an economist, I thought it might make a reasonable transition, but also because it was an important piece and I didn't get around to making the sort of the killer point of all of this too. Oh, now where is this thing? I know I didn't archive it, but I'm going to have to slow down my scrolling so that I can identify the right piece. Oh, there we are. Trump, pro-crypto or pro-crime? You remember this one? All right, I think 10 minutes will probably be enough to get through this thing, even if I start over from the beginning to add the context. Pro-crypto or pro-crime, or are they the same thing? Paul Krugman asked on Monday. On the one side, the Trump administration is sinking small boats that it claims without evidence are smuggling drugs, according to the Washington Post. Pete Hegseth, the self-styled Secretary of War, has personally ordered at least one follow-up strike to kill survivors. A working group of former JAGs, that is, member of the military's legal branch, JAG being Judge Advocate General, JAG, issued a statement declaring that it unanimously considers both the giving and the execution of these orders, if true, to constitute war crimes, murder, or both. And yes, they're true. I guess the question of the tick-tock of when these various orders were given and maybe who voiced them and how would be of some interest. But I guess we have yet to see. On the other side, Donald Trump has declared his intention to grant a full and complete pardon to Juan Orlando Hernandez, a former president of Honduras who's been convicted of conspiring to import cocaine into the United States, and a lot of it, I would add. In fact, Hernandez was part of a cartel, including his brother, that smuggled hundreds of tons of cocaine into this country. We did do this part yesterday. At first glance, the juxtaposition seems bizarre. Everyone's been saying so. Trump is either murdering or committing war crimes against people who are at worst small-time drug smugglers and maybe innocent fishermen, while pardoning a drug lord who was responsible for thousands of American deaths while savaging his own country, Honduras. But there is a pattern to this murderous madness. Once one connects the dots between Trump's mob boss persona and the billionaire crypto tech broligarchy. First, understand that Trump's vendetta against purported penny anti-drug smugglers is all about dominance display and exhibition of his ability to order violence. The real object may be to set the stage for invading Venezuela. So far, commonly made points, I think. Second, while Trump is clearly willing to inflict gratuitous suffering on little people, he positively revels in his association with big-time criminals, whether it's Putin, MBS, Ross Ulbricht, the creator of Silk Road, of course, the underground e-marketplace known for drug trafficking, whom Trump pardoned immediately after assuming office, or Larry Hoover, a Chicago crime boss who was sentenced to several lifetimes in prison for leading the gangster Disciples, also pardoned by Trump. Yes, Trump really and truly cares about crime in Chicago. We got to send the National Guard. We got to send troops to Chicago to tamp down on crime, except for the crimes that I like over there. Still, why would Trump, whose poll numbers are cratering, generate even more negative headlines by pardoning Hernandez, who was duly convicted of conspiring to send more than 400 tons of cocaine to America? The answer is the influence of crypto and tech broligarchy. In fact, many of Trump's pardons of the most egregious criminals are closely linked to their influence, and I might not have guessed that initially. A case in point is Ulbricht, whose Silk Road was an early example of what is still the main non-speculative use of Bitcoin, facilitating criminal activity. Right? Anonymous, unregulated currency that can't be traced if you don't want it to be. Well, what's going to be used for that? What will be the use of that? Facilitating criminal activity. Ross Ulbricht was a darling of the tech libertarian crowd, which includes Peter Thiel, arguably the godfather of Silicon Valley, and whose financial backing was critical to J.D. Vance's Senate win. And now here he is vice president. Damn it. Trump first promised to pardon Ulbricht in 2024 as part of a pitch to win the votes of libertarians. And embedded here is a photo of him at the Libertarian National Convention in 2024 under the tagline "Become Ungovernable," which he points out is spelled or written out where the A in ungovernable is an anarchy symbol, and the A over the circle. Whatever libertarians were in the past, they are now an extremist party opposed to laws against drug smuggling, money laundering, and any type of prudential government regulation, and in the case of Thiel, opposed to democracy itself. Just shout it out. Go ahead. It should not go unnoticed that Trump saluted a party that proclaims "become ungovernable" as its guiding principle, written with the anarchy A symbol. Next, we just about got to this. There was Trump's pardon of Changpeng Zhao, a.k.a. CZ, the former CEO of the cryptocurrency exchange Binance. Fits the same pattern. CZ pled guilty to charges of violating U.S. laws against money laundering and was fined $50 million, in addition to a fine of $4.3 billion against Binance. Under CZ, Binance was a major channel of worldwide money laundering. As one report put it, prosecutors charged that Binance, quote, intentionally and purposefully ignored the transfer of money from countries and areas that are subject to sanctions, including Syria, Iran, Cuba, Russia-occupied Crimea, and the Donbass region of Ukraine. There was also trading that involved the criminal dark web market Hydra, whatever that is. Hail Hydra. And then the story continues. I better get to it. There was the lawsuit filed by 300 U.S. citizens hurt or killed in the October 7th attacks on Israel, suing Binance, claiming the cryptocurrency exchange aided Hamas and other terrorist groups by transferring more than $1 billion among accounts they controlled. However, in the world of radical libertarians of the crypto tech broligarchy, CZ's crimes weren't real crimes because crypto is designed to, free us, man. To free us from the pernicious oversight of government. Yes, Trump really cares about stopping terrorism. Finally, why pardon Hernandez? What's the connection to the crypto tech broligarchy? Well, it's called Prospera. Prospera is a for-profit city being built off Honduras' coast. Its charter largely exempts the island from Honduran law. Instead, the city is run by a governing structure that for the most part gives control to a corporation, Honduras Prospera Incorporated, which is in turn funded by a familiar list of Silicon Valley billionaires, including Thiel, but also Sam Altman and Mark Andreessen. So, while the city is being marketed as a libertarian paradise, it's best seen as an autonomous oligarchy, government of, by, and for billionaires. And you won't be surprised to learn that with Prospera, Bitcoin is legal tender. In 2013, Honduran law made that creation of Prospera possible. The law was initially ruled unconstitutional by the Honduran Supreme Court, but that ruling was reversed after Juan Orlando Hernandez's predecessor, Porfirio Lobo Sosa, managed to dismiss 4 of the court's justices. Well, that's interesting. Like Hernandez, Sosa was a right-wing lawyer who became president after a populist president, Manuel Zelaya, was overthrown by a military coup. Under both Hernandez and Sosa, chaos reigned. Corruption, criminal gangs, and drugs overran the country. The current president, Zelaya's wife, has tried to claw back some of the sovereignty over Prospera, which has struck back with a mammoth lawsuit that could bankrupt the country. Yesterday, Honduras held an election, it wasn't yesterday anymore, in which Trump-backed Nasri Asfura, the member of the same right-wing party as Hernandez. Early results show the governing left-wing party well behind, but Asfura in a virtual tie with another right-wing candidate. In any case, the point is that while Trump threatens and fulminates against Maduro and Venezuela, he is openly backing the Honduran political party that has allowed massive drug smuggling into the U.S. Why? Let's see if we can get through that real quickly. Why? The only logical answer is because of the influence of the crypto/tech broligarchy and their interests in Prospera. So the announced pardon of Hernandez for drug smuggling isn't really a departure from the pardons of Binance's Changpeng Zhao for money laundering or Silk Road's Ross Ulbricht for facilitating illicit drug sales. In each case, what's being upheld is the principle that lawlessness in pursuit of tech billionaires' interests is no vice. In fact, it's to be encouraged. And Trump, whose only principles appear to be self-enrichment and vindictiveness, is happy to go along. So, that's a twist that we'll have to keep an eye on. I hadn't heard anything about that. I don't know whether you have, but probably it's been bandied about and we just didn't know about it. But interesting that all of them somehow involve huge holdings in cryptocurrency, which is valueless except for its use in criminal activity, pretty much, and the people actually involved in that criminal activity, up to and including just sort of pardoning drug kingpins for no particular reason, except that Peter Thiel will have more money that he can use, I guess, to have a luxury experience at Disneyland or whatever. Or if you watch that video, make even more millions passively without actually doing any of the work that takes other people 110 hours a week.
From NetworksRadio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
I told you there was a way we could tie all this together, and now tying the day's news together next will be Justice Putnam with his West Coast cookbook and speakeasy, starting off with a panicked Trump ordering his MAGA Department of Justice to file notices with Judge Aileen Cannon, warning her not to release Special Counsel Jack Smith's Pervalago final report.